Hello and welcome, everybody. Thank you guys so much for tuning into the stream. Today we have our special tiny superhero Mateo here and his mom, Alia. Thank you so much for joining us on the call today. How are you doing today?
Good.
Good, 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 good. So, I really appreciate y'all tuning into the live stream. Today we're just going to kind of go over, what it's like co-parenting with a child with special needs, and just kind of also letting you guys get to know her and her experience. I know last week you guys got to hear from me in regards to, how things, I saw things from my perspective, some of the things that were my biggest fears or some of the biggest concerns I had. But, I also want you to be able to hear from mom's side as well, kind of like her experience and things. So first off, we'll just start with the basics. Holly, where are you from?
Marietta, Georgia. Lived here my whole life. Never known much of anything else. I actually was born at the same
You haven't
hospital.
traveled out anywhere else or anything?
Never been out of the country. Well, I've been traveled, but not out of the country.
Okay. All right. So you're now actually a mother of two children. You have two boys. What's that like handling both of them?
The times I've had them together, it's a lot, but it's worth it. I'll say that much. It definitely will test how much you can get to sleep and keeping everybody on schedule and trying to coordinate giving both of them proper attention without feeling bad about leaving the other one behind. So it's a lot, but I wouldn't change it no matter what. That's for sure.
Would you say there are any big differences between, raising Mateo in the beginning and now compared to JJ?
Yeah, it's a whole new world. Kids that are, completely healthy, have no genetic issues or nothing. It's definitely a first go for me. A lot of stuff I did not experience with him, and it's difficult and it's a different way. He's difficult in his way, and JJ is difficult in his own way. So it's a learning
This is
experience.
so true.
I know you
I
know.
can definitely relate with that. I can definitely relate with that. With having his little sister and him at the same exact time, it's different. Especially, I would say, when they start crawling and walking around, that was a huge different thing. Mateo here is 5 years old. Marcy is 1 year old, and the things that we had to worry about with Mateo, I wouldn't say are, with Mateo, he has his own worries that you worry about, just like you have your own worries. But man, having to chase them down or keep them from getting anything is absolutely funny.
That's work out. That's for sure.
So when Mateo was first born, what was going through your mind, without taking in consideration of his special needs, because obviously we didn't know anything in the beginning. What was your experience like with, your first time having a child?
At home or in the hospital? Because it got real once
Just,
you got.
I mean, just from the beginning, just when, he was brought to us.
Nerve-wracking.
What was going
He was the loud breathing. And I know we honestly had no clue what it was. And I know I didn't ever expect it to turn into what it did when we finally, figured out what it was. So it was a lot of anxiety, a lot of fear of the unknown. But I was not prepared for what we have come to learn. So
Yeah, the
definitely.
laryngomalacia was very prominent in the beginning, that heavy breathing, and whatnot. They even actually diagnosed them with the laryngomalacia in the beginning. Remember that?
He was going to outgrow
The,
it and it was going to be okay. Yeah. Don't get me going on that.
yeah, I expressed my very same sentiments last week, and I think it was um, Vera who had mentioned, or Lorraine who had mentioned last week that their child was diagnosed with laryngomalacia later on in life, and now that they were able to address the issue, they were able to eat by mouth, and it's great. But it's so um, I wouldn't say upsetting per se, but
So much. Like,
seeing
it could go
it's
completely one
how it
way.
just wasn't addressed. They just
Exactly.
assumed he was going to grow out of it. That was a big thing.
Yep.
So, going into this, Mateo was diagnosed, fairly early, right around 4.5 months, with infantile spasms. and an unknown genetic disorder. What was going through your mind at that time? I know what I was thinking,
You
but in
mean
the
the hospital
beginning,
thing, or
when we left, yeah, when we left from Dr. Gold's office that time, what
I
was
feel like
going through your mind?
when we got to Dr. Holt's office that day and we started having those episodes there, I feel like our life just went 0 to 60 in a matter of like 2 or 3 hours. Like we were not prepared for what was about to happen at all. I'm thankful for it, but it was scary, you know. I mean, seeing him hooked up to all those things and how they said he wasn't getting enough oxygen like we thought he would have been, and just he was in worse shape than we imagined, honestly. And it's scary, very
Oh,
scary.
so we got a couple of things here in the chat. Just want to make sure I don't miss any of that. We've got Sarah Williams saying, "Hey, hey, Sarah, how are you doing?" We've got Leslie Speakman saying, good morning," and that she sent me some great information this morning. Oh, awesome, perfect. I will be sure to check it out after this stream. Um, but yeah, no, so we were talking about his genetic disorder and like kind of like what was going on through her mind. I remember we were at that GI doctor's appointment, and I think we were like right across the hospital from Children's of Atlanta at that point in time. What was going through your mind throughout that transit? Do you
Going
remember
from
even
his
that,
office
or
to the hospital,
yeah, because
uh,
you know we ended up having to take Mateo straight from that doctor's room and drive him over to the emergency room when all of that
yep,
happened, and then just I feel like it went by so fast. What about you?
it
It
kind of
that
just it's hard to really remember accurate details because it's almost like it just went in fast mode so quickly, and we were in the ICU and then stuck there for weeks at a time and testing, and it got so crazy so fast. But I definitely didn't expect that. No, I just figured they would say, "Hey, he's got seizures. Let's do this, let's do that." But they diagnosed so much on that stay that we could not have imagined ever. And even then, the trach, I would have never thought he'd be on a trach right now. And they talked about that then. It's just fear, absolute fear, for sure.
we brought it up on the call last week. I had mentioned how in the beginning they had mentioned like getting a trach for him, and you and I we had come to agreement. We wanted him to see if he could grow out of it because they told us 95% of people who have laryngomalacia end up growing out of it. And
Hmm.
I think it was roughly 2 years later in that October that this is when I was actually in Utah, and you were with him in the hospital. And they were like, we got to do an emergency tracheostomy. He's just not able to maintain stats even with um, the oxygen. What was going through your mind? What was going through your mind then when he was going through the
That was
tracheostomy?
probably one of the scariest moments ever. I know they reassured us, it's going to be okay. We do this all the time, but I didn't know how to take care of it. I didn't know what the day-to-day life with it was going to be like. It was overwhelming. Like I was I was so overwhelmed. And you not being there, like I had to do it with just you like through video calls, and I didn't have that person there. It was just a lot. And I'm so thankful that that part of our life is past because now we're kind of stable now. But
Hmm.
hey, baby. But it definitely it teaches you a lot. We had to learn a lot. And I know you had to do like a fast-paced course.
Yeah, I remember. I will never forget that call. I remember sitting in my little cubicle in the office, and then you calling me saying, "There's saying that we need to do an emergency tracheostomy
You get
now." He is getting excited. Yeah, he was.
excited?
What are you doing, buddy?
Hey,
What are you
boy.
doing, buddy? Um, but the, I was remember sitting in my queue and you call and because you'd given me a heads up like a day or two before that they mentioned that we probably should push for the trach. We should push for the trach. And I was like, well,
Yeah.
give me some time to get back to Georgia. Like I can't just fly back in a day's given time. All of a sudden you got that call. You gave me that call and they were like, they're wanting to do it today. Like they're doing it today. And I was like, wait, what? Like I haven't even gotten the approval yet. So like 2 days later, I flew out there. And it was already after he had the emergency tracheostomy. And I can't thank you so much for being there with him, during that point in time and just standing by his side. So that was really important. But I will say now, as much as we feared doing that, um, I think it was probably the best. It helped out so much, allowed us to sleep better at night. We didn't have to worry
Yeah.
about his position as much. We didn't have to,
You know,
he didn't have to
in the
say that
hospital and
again.
at
Sorry.
home, how many times he had
Mm-hmm.
coded, like at the hospital, and
Oh,
then I had to do CPR at home because nobody was there with me and I was by myself, and his stats were dropping. He was turning blue, like waiting on the EMTs to get there. Like, I never want to experience that again. And a trach gave me a peace of mind that it wouldn't happen again. And if it did, I at least had tools to know I could fix it. It just felt helpless before then.
Leslie Speakman says it's like you have to learn to be a nurse and how things work all at one time.
We always joke that we could definitely be kind of nurses just from everything we've learned, especially you, because you're good with that stuff.
Thank you, I appreciate it. Yeah, it was definitely a lot to learn. I think our first 30 days, just with him being diagnosed in the beginning. Um, what are you doing, buddy?
He
What are
wants
you doing,
attention.
buddy? He does. He's like, you're doing all the talking, Daddy. What is it, buddy?
He knows.
He does. He does. Hey, Alana. Yeah. May I get the suction machine real quick, please? It's in there. It's on your bed. Oh, it is? Okay, perfect. Sorry. 1 second, you guys. All right, buddy. I got you. So, but forgive me. The next question that I actually had for you was, with all the amount of hospital stays that we had with Mateo, what was your scariest part? What was your scariest experience you think about all of that?
Any of the times his sats would drop, if he'd have a seizure and they'd overload him with medicine, and then he'd be so out of it, everything would just, they couldn't keep it up. I know one night in particular, I was just pacing the halls in and out of the room, back and forth, and they kept bagging him, and he just could not come back up. I mean, oh God, it just makes me sick to my stomach just to think back to that and having to do it while you were in a different state at that. It just, oh, the fear of not knowing about what's going on with your kid, I swear. It's awful. I would say any times he's done that, and he does that often when he's on the medicine. So I mean, it definitely happened a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, I would say just that 1 year. Do you remember that 1 year where I think he spent 200? Yeah, I think he spent like 280 days out of like a whole entire year, just back and forth in the hospital trying to get those seizures controlled.
Like, can you believe we're here now compared to when we
No.
used to live? Granted, it happens time to time, but not like it was.
Leslie Speakman says, I think he's agreeing with y'all. Yeah, he definitely is. I think he's yes. He's like, I am the star. Don't forget that, you guys. Yeah, I would say the scariest part about being in the hospital was just that it seemed like every single time that we went, it was always picky. It wasn't just going to the emergency room and then because like it is now, if Mateo gets sick, we don't go to the PICU anymore. Generally, we just go to the pulmonology floor. That's just because he's vent dependent, he's got the trach, so. But all those other times, it's like we would bypass the pulmonology floor and just be in the PICU. And the PICU was just constantly so busy, not only with what was going on with Mateo, but those other children that were there in the PICU floor. So there's always just seemed nerve-wracking because they're always just working so fast up there. That was the scariest part. It's just constantly being in the PICU and thinking intensive care unit.
Seriously, yeah, it's depressing in its own right, just seeing all the kids that are in there, helpless pretty much because they're so little, and it just, at least for me, I'm emotional, so things get to me a lot easier. But definitely so glad he can not have to do that anymore. For real. You've come a long way.
So I got a question for you then. What's it like co-parenting with your I guess yeah, with me.
We're great now. It was not overnight. No
No, it
fight,
definitely
but
wasn't.
I commend you a lot because we decided a long time ago Mateo comes first. Even when we bicker and argue and get under each other's skin, it's still Mateo at the end of the day. And I think the doctors have even told us, not all parents are handling things like you guys do. So I mean, I never felt like it was perfect, but we got commended for it a lot, and I feel like I think we do a pretty bang up job. I really do. I
I
can't
definitely do
complain.
too as well. I agree with
Not
you. You know,
common.
that's one thing that we have in common is that we're hard headed, but we always put him first. And I can't stress and thank you enough in regards to just you know being there for him when I wasn't, when I was working and whatnot. But and then just keeping me updated and me keeping you updated. That's the biggest thing I would say is communication. And I think that over the years, that's one thing that we've maintained really well is that communication.
It
Um,
didn't come easy at first. We definitely
no, it did
had to
not.
learn it.
Yes,
You remember the
you
hospital
know,
days we bicker and argue about the smallest, stupidest things,
yeah,
but now it's better.
and that's where I would say that throughout the years, I learned a little to be more compassionate actually because of you and Mateo.
You
Um,
have no, you can
you know,
tell.
I've
Oh yeah,
I have learned to become more emotional and more emotionally supportive because of you. Because I remember in the beginning, um, you being more emotional and me always just trying to be analytical or logical, and taking my emotions off the side. I didn't understand it, and I think that was our biggest issues where we butted heads at was that I would try and tell you to take emotions out of it, but in the same exact instance, I realized that I was the one that was in the wrong for that. You taught me to be more emotional, and he taught me to be more emotional and more patient. Um,
if I
so
taught you, you definitely taught me to be stronger and about every little detail. I mean, I get it, yes, but you definitely we've helped each other. We'll say that much.
so how did you handle the stress of being his primary caregiver? In the beginning, like what did you do to kind of like help ease the stress, the tension, so maybe that others out there can maybe follow an example or take some notes from it.
That I was never perfect at using the stress. I was a stress load a lot, and even now I'm still like that. But you take the time you get and run with it. If you can get out of the house for a few minutes and get some fresh air, go. If you can get a couple hours by yourself, you have a nurse or your family's watching them, take it. You have to recharge. It's a lot, and especially then learning everything and doing it on my own and not on my own, but I mean we weren't in the same state, so it was a big learning process, but it was definitely worth it because I learned a lot. I mean, I can take care of him. I can change a trach. I can, see a little hole right here. It doesn't bother me. I mean, look, parent can do stuff like that. It definitely, I say it's pretty cool. Definitely a learning experience. You're doing it now.
Yeah.
Yay!
Leslie Speakman says it can be very stressful on families because everyone can get anxious. Would you agree with that?
I'm queen of anxiety, of course.
I was definitely going to let you answer that one. But yes, yeah,
You
I
definitely
would
have
say,
no, go ahead.
I was going to say, I would definitely say that I remember some of the things that helped you out a lot was just being able to get out of the house. I think your favorite
That was
pastime
my
is
big thing.
driving.
I asked my mom, I just want to go drive for a little bit. And I'd just go drive around, listen to music. And when you don't have a nurse, that's a lot. But the nurse does
Yeah.
help when you have a great one like you have. So,
And yeah, she'll actually be on next week's segment. So I can't wait for you guys to tune in for that one and see. Do we have any questions from anybody out there on Alabama Care?
He's, he's smiling.
Are there any tips that you can give, caregivers of special needs, meaning parents or other people who care for children with special needs? If there's any kind of tips, what would you recommend?
Oh, I wish I could have taken my own advice, but try not to get overwhelmed at first. I know it's a lot, but I wish I had been a lot more calm in the beginning. 'Cause I was constantly, I lived in fear. It's the fear of the unknown. Are you gonna how long your kid's gonna be here? Is it gonna be this? Is he gonna have this problem his whole life? And you have to take a step back and look at the bigger picture. And that's what you taught me, honestly. You gotta think about the bigger picture and what's going on and not focus on everything at once because that right there was the death of me.
You
You
know,
know, freak yourself out for sure.
would you say that patience is a really good key for other caregivers and parents to learn to as well?
Me and you have both had to learn patience and for different
Yeah,
reasons, but you're impatient for your own reasons and I'm impatient for my own. So yeah, you definitely have to. If you're not,
definitely.
you're
I would
going to
say
be really angry when you're sitting at the hospital ready to go home one day and nope, 3 hours later you're still sitting there. Believe me, you get patient. Those days suck.
this is so true. I remember that like every single time that we would end up getting discharged out of the hospital, it seemed like it took hours to get out of there. We'd already have Mateo ready, sitting up in his wheelchair, have everything like bagged up, and it's like, all right, ready to go, ready to break out of this joint. So yeah, um, definitely yeah. So patience, learning to take things one step at a time. Those are some really great tips. Um, Liz says he hears his mom's voice. I can see it in his lip movements.
I was hoping
And
so. I was
then
like, I think it's me.
and it says she also says I found a lot of resources on Facebook. Finding groups of other parents to talk to helps with the stress. I definitely agree. Um,
Agree.
you and I are a lot of those support groups. We're in support groups that are like feeding tubes support groups. We're in infantile spasm support groups, epilepsy groups. Um, and whenever I see people post comments, pictures, asking questions, and it comes up on my timeline feed, I always try and chime in and give some kind of advice because we've been there. That first 30
Yes.
days
No.
was that first 30 days was the craziest because they did the supraglotticplasty surgery, then there's some fundoplication surgery, the NJ tube, and then a few days later with the G tube, and all that happened within 30 days. And I wish that, and during those times, and I'm thankful for like that I did do my own research and that I did keep the doctors there and ask them a lot of questions, even though a lot of them got mad at me because I would keep them in the room.
Always ask you
Um,
if you were an engineer. Every
People
time.
always what?
Asked you if you were an engineer just because how inquisitive you were about everything, which that's fine because you were better at it than I was. You could use big words, you could break stuff down for me. Like that was your strength. It still is.
Yeah, I've had numerous of doctors get upset because I wouldn't stop asking them questions. But I would definitely say it's the big thing that parents and caregivers in general as a whole need to realize. There's no such thing as a dumb question. There's no such thing as too many questions. If you don't understand, ask, 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 ask. You're right.
Because they will try and shove you off. You have to be persistent. That is where you win. I was not good at that. You don't care. You
Leslie,
just shut up. It's fine.
no, I don't care if I mean, unless I'm impeding on another child, like if a code blue is called or something, because you can generally hear that kind of stuff on the PICU floor or whatnot, or you can actually hear the alarms beeping in other people's room. Like, if I don't hear a pressing need, I got questions for you. Leslie
Yeah.
Speakman says, I've learned to keep stuff with you when you have to go to the hospital. What do you mean by that, Leslie? Like, keeping stuff such as like food goods or
And clothes.
Yeah, clothes. Yeah, definitely. I remember, I remember when Mateo was actually first born. Like I had forgotten your bag of clothes and things and whatnot, and I had to run back and get it.
Yep.
So yeah, that's definitely important. Is having a go bag. I always have one packed and ready. Actually, I've got a backpack in the closet that has a set of like pajamas and clothes in it, so in case something ever happens, it's just a grab and go with it. Right, buddy? Yeah,
Say
yeah.
me too.
You got a lot of friends down there, though, don't you?
Oh,
You got
everybody
a
knew
lot of
Mateo.
friends. And they're all
You
getting to
remember
know
how we
him
were
here at
in
the
the
hospital.
hospital? I bet it's the same there. You know how it was here? Everybody knew Mateo from the time he was a baby until, now or whenever we left there. It's just, he was definitely loved and
Yeah,
memorable.
he definitely is. He's definitely loved.
Say, I know, buddy.
God, he is getting so big. I can't believe he's like 50 something pounds now.
I didn't realize it was that heavy. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, last time we got a weight check in on him was about a month and a half ago. He was 45 pounds, but I swear he's been. I haven't weighed him since. I'm assuming he's like 50 plus, just because like he definitely feels heavier getting in and out of the bath more than he did a month and a half ago. So,
Seriously, I believe it. He's so big
and Leslie
now.
Speakman says it exactly like you're prepped to have a baby. Definitely.
Yeah. For sure. It's just crazy to me how small he was, and he got the feeding tube, and it's taken this long just for him to gain finally a substantial amount of weight because wasn't he underweight for a while? I mean, it was a struggle for a while.
For a year, like a year and a half almost, maybe even closer to, he weighed the same weight. It was like
Yeah.
fluctuating between 30 and 33 pounds. And then this past year, he just shot up like a root. Here we are now. Like he's getting almost the length of his twin size bed now. Clothes, like we're going through clothes like it's crazy. All those clothes that we got him for Christmas. All
The
those
ones we
clothes we
all
got him
got?
for Christmas. Yeah, are
Are they too
fitting
small?
normally now. No, they're fitting
Oh
normally
my god.
now.
Dang. Jeez.
Yeah.
That's insane. Wow. Not complaining though.
So, so are there any other tips that you can think of in regards to co-parenting that you would like to offer to those who are maybe doing this by themselves, but not inherently, or vice versa? Or like, what kind of tips can you offer parents and caregivers to co-parent
Hmm.
better, if you would recommend anything?
You have to put your problems aside, and other circumstances have made me realize that. Not
Mhm.
exactly what you, but you always have to put your feelings aside because it doesn't matter. If I'm fighting with you, I can't focus on that because it's got to be about him. It always puts him first. I think that's hard for some people. I don't know if it's just been more natural for us because we've always just had that understanding, but according to other people, apparently it's not as easy for them. So whenever you irritate me, I just try to remember that.
That is true. If I had to give any kind of suggestion, is staying
Yeah,
consistent, being there. I
a
would say
good
that was
scheduled
my
routine.
biggest advice.
Yeah,
Yes, or a good schedule
you've got to.
routine, but also just staying consistent with the way you do things, especially with Mateo and other children with special needs, having a routine, since it's kind of a struggle for them in regards to learning um, new things or whatnot. Being consistent is more important than anything, because then that's something that they can always rely on, fall back on. Like I know every day at this time, um, we do our stretches, or we do our bath times, um, or whatnot. It's easier for them to learn when the patterns are
But it's
consistent. So I
helpful
recommend that
too.
with.
It makes it
Oh,
less
definitely,
chaotic.
definitely, and you know, and then making sure that you communicate that consistency to co-parents. I would say that's big, huge, obvious thing with co-parenting is just being able to communicate. And I'm just glad that we were able to do that. I feel like we did really well in regards to communicating with Mateo about like his needs and stuff like that. You know, it was the learning to, like you said, putting those differences aside sometimes to
Yeah.
further that communication and essentially like, you know, staying friends throughout all of this. That's actually really important. You know, don't have to necessarily be the best as friends, but if you can maintain friends, remember that, you know, we made something as beautiful and as amazing as Mateo, you know, we can maintain that friendship to co-parent.
Hey, puppy.
Thumbs.
I saw that from here.
I'm sorry.
It's okay.
All right. Hold on 1 second, you guys. I got to get Mateo ready for lunch real quick. All right, it is 12:30, buddy. It is your lunchtime. Yeah. All right, Miss Lana, Mateo is coming in for lunch. Mateo is coming in for lunch. So I really appreciate y'all coming into the chat and just being able to finally meet Mateo. I think that's the first time Mateo's had public airtime, so I think he did great on his first debut. Vera Lewis says, oh, actually, first we'll see 1 second. We had a lot more comments come in here. Oh, Granny is watching, is what it says. Yeah.
That's my grandma.
Leslie Speakman says, my husband doesn't like to drive, so it feels like I'm doing this all by myself. Oh, that's the hardest part too, as well. As you know, it's not only in certain aspects feeling like you're doing it by yourself, but like being able just to help out your you know, your other partner or, you know, the parent, is like knowing when to also sacrifice. Sometimes you have to make certain self-sacrifices to give each other breaks and times and stuff like that. And then, you know, I'm fortunate for you being able to do that, you know, put aside time, you know, we're both busy parents of 2 kids. So Leslie Speakman, it's that communication is definitely key, and I would recommend, you know, just, you know, let them know like how it helps me out stress wise. You know, it's hard sometimes being able to communicate that in a calm tone, and I think that's also another problem where you and I would sometimes butt heads. It's like making it more of a demand request instead of elaborating on like, hey, I need this bit of de-stress, not go and do this. So yeah, just communication is definitely key there. Yeah. Vera Lewis says, I know for us as parents, we had an established routine, and like you said, it definitely makes things less chaotic.
It does.
And then Leslie Speakman says he does pay the bills. I'll give him that. Vera Lewis also says, I also had to make sure I shared information or changes in care plan because I often just kept it to myself and didn't always share the information or reach my husband. And then I would get angry if he didn't know what to do in my absence, but I had to share that info. I mean, that's something that I would say that we can definitely relate on. You know, I would begrudgingly, and it's happened before where you've done the same thing, find out information and then forget to share it, and then when you forget to share it and then you see the issue or whatever, so maybe the case, getting mad like, why didn't you? And it's like, well, technically it's my fault because I didn't share that information with you, you know. Right. And so, you know, it's learning, like you said, putting those differences aside to make sure that all those changes are communicated to maintain that consistent routine.
Amen.
Mira Lewis also says, I missed the routine we are getting a glimpse of today with your family now that my daughter is in heaven. Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that, Vera. Yeah, the routine definitely makes even having a routine for yourself, instead of just, first, makes things, it kind of feels like it makes your day a little bit easier, calmer,
It's yeah, it's something so small, but it does help.
So I'm glad that you were able to see that, we have a working, co-parenting communication, you guys. And if there's any questions that you guys have, or stories you want to share, or questions about how we got through certain situations, please feel free to ask. I want to let everybody know that, we're all in this together. That's the reason we're part of this group. We know somebody that's got special needs, or we have somebody that's got special needs, or we had somebody that had special needs. And it's very important that we stay connected. We share this information. We take time to listen to each other, and then also not feel afraid to ask each other questions. So I'm glad that you were able to get on here with this call with us today, Alia, and answer these questions. I'm sure a lot of people were wondering how we're able to do this, how we're able to co-parent, and at the end of the day, it's, staying friends, because at the end of the day, we were together for a reason. We were friends first, and co-parenting requires communication. It requires consistency. It requires patience, and overall, it requires support. So
The village.
takes a village, and I'm just glad that I have you still here. I'm glad that I have people like Vera and Leslie and everybody in the Alabama Care Group that are willing to reach out and ask questions, or provide their insights to their life, because we can only learn by sharing it. So, are there any questions that you by chance have for me?
Me?
Yeah, you.
How are you coping with being a daddy to two? Because I know you have your moments. Because Marcy's on the wild side now.
Oh my goodness! I swear she has the terrible twos right now, and she's not even two yet. Oh my
I
goodness!
said that this morning to AJ. I was like, "Are you two already? Jeez."
No, she's getting there. She's 2 going on 13.
Lord.
No, but it's going really well.
I know you enjoy
like you
being a dad.
I do.
I see that.
Leslie speaking said, or sorry, her internet's messing up. I didn't. It seems to be working on my end. I got all your comments and everything. And then Leslie said, thanks. Oh, she said, oh, glad I could help. Yes. It really helps, just engagement, and letting people sharing stories. So, but I think that's all the questions that I have for right now. I just want to thank you again, Alia, so much for taking time out of your day, and answering questions for us, and just being the great mom that you are. I really appreciate you, seriously. And I think that's all the stream that I have for you guys right now. Thank y'all so much for tuning in. If you have any other questions, always feel free to reach out to me. I'm not going to speak on behalf of Alia per se, but I'm sure she wouldn't mind if y'all reached out to her.
Not at all.
I'll tag her at the end of this video in the comments section, so you guys can reach out to her too as well, if that's okay with you, Alia.
Yeah, of course.
Okay, perfect. Awesome. Well, thank y'all so much for tuning in, and y'all have yourselves a wonderful rest of your day and week.
I'll talk to you later.
I'll talk to you later. Bye.